Yesterday I was thinking about what I should put on prior to putting the exhaust system on, and as I was thinking about it and where you have to attach it, it's kind of vague instructions. It says attached to the body on some of the mufflers and that, so I didn't know where. And I figured the more of the body that I have on, the better off I'll be. So I started looking at some of the videos I took of the disassembly, and one of the things I did is I took off the spare tire carrier to give myself more room to work. So that kind of has to go on toward the end. I decided that, one thing I had a moment of panic because in looking at the videos, I had left the bumper, the crash bumper on the rear, attached to this when I took the body off. And I was wondering, did I make it harder for myself to put that thing on? So fortunately, when I came down this morning, there appears to be room to work. I mean, it might be a little more restricted, but we'll see as we put it on. I'm going to take you over and show you the piece I'm talking about and one of the issues that I had during disassembly. So the rear bumper is there, and one of the things that I had happened during disassembly is right here, the bolt broke. And this is aluminum, the bolt is steel. This is the remnants after drilling it, breaking 3 drill bits, and slightly ovaling the hole, but it still will thread in there carefully. So I found a bolt to use on the other side. It's not quite the same, but it's the right thread. So I'm going to put that one in first. That all holds this onto the bumper. So as you can see, there's a hole there, hole there, and it won't line up exactly right because right now there's a bolt in the back that holds it on from the back that I need to take out before I put it on there. But I'm going to put that on after I put it on the car. I think there's room to reach it. So the next thing is, how do I hold this up while I'm putting it in place? Because 3 shims on this side, 2 shims on the right side that need to be put in. And I think I have a plan, so I am going to take this bumper over to the car and try to execute the plan. In the meantime, I am going to coat those shims with this inner panel protector. I didn't want to paint them because it would take too long to dry. It's end of September and it's cooler, and the paint under ideal situations has a 6-hour to handle dry time, so I didn't want to do that. So and nobody's ever going to see this anyways. It's going to be under the bumper cover. So here's what I'm going to attempt to do. I'm going to attempt to use the ground to support one end of this bumper, and I'm going to try to put this screw into this screw hole. Now this thing shifts. It allows you to mount the bumper and then adjust it and then tighten down these bolts. So a bolt will go through, I hope you can see this, through this hole right here into that one. And I won't have to hold the full weight of that thing. It is surprisingly heavy considering that it is aluminum. But so I'm going to attempt to get this installed. And there are a number of attachments that go on here. There's places where the lights go, tail lights, and there's the center thing that's and all I want to do is get this started so that I can just kind of rotate the other side of it up. The other thing is those shims need to be put in here. So those are going to be left pretty loose. So I'll make sure I've got the camera aimed where it's relevant. I'm going to be working on this side now. I'm going to attempt to lift that up with one hand and start the other screw with the other. Apparently it was a pretty good plan. Now I have to go get all the rest of the bolts and put those in. But that is a good start. So I've raised the height of the car just simply to make it better working height for myself, less bending over. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the bolts in the other top hole first. I've got the two top bolts started. I can take the shims, which have a slot at the top and a slotted hole at the bottom, and slip those up around those two bolts, and then take another bolt and start it the bottom hole. Kind of easier said than done because I have to hold the shims in place and find that threaded hole. That's the problem I'm having now, seeing the threaded hole. And I lost the shims. Lost the alignment on them. So let's take them out. Start over. Lined up. The weight of the bumper is currently holding them in. start the other one, I think. Those three are started. Bottom one on this side is not started for sure. Where is it? It's a little, I should have tested these screws in these holes before. Wait a minute. Come to think of it, I did have them in the holes because that's how I stored them. So I know they will thread in. And I also, after I took them out, I ran them on the wire wheel to clean up any of the threads. So it's just an alignment issue. All four are started on this side. Before I tighten those, I have to get all four started on this side, because if I tighten those, I won't have any play on this side to wiggle them around. So there's the top bolt. This side gets 3 shims, so that ought to be even more fun than trying to do 2. Again, the weight of the bumper is pressing up against those shims and holding them in from falling. Third one started. Fourth one is starting up. You can see there's a lot of play up and down, so I'm not quite sure how that's got to be aligned. And I don't think I'll be 100% sure until I pretty much get them all in, or everything set to go. I'm going to try to align it about the middle. I'm going to tighten these, but not really, really tight. Not enough room between the other bolt on the bracket it goes and the head of this one to get the wrench on it. I have to have it in far enough. Probably have that bumper slightly off level, and I don't know if I tightened those too tight to move it. No, I didn't. Okay. I'll get it down here on one of these and raise it with one hand to about the middle. tighten those all the way right now because, as I said, there's going to be some adjustment probably will be necessary. Now, this is the piece that had the broken bolt. Just start the screw in the back first. And I decided that since I was replacing one of the screws, and I noticed as I was putting it in that the head was different on that screw. It was the 7/16, the others were 3/8. But the thread is the same, so I found another bolt that's exactly the same for the other side. I have another ratchet. Hopefully this one fits in there. Yep. I don't want to tighten that one too much because that's one with the messed up threads. I'll tighten it the rest of it by hand. And the back one is still a 3/8, so I didn't get a third one. Okay, that's pretty tight. I will check this one by hand. I'm going to do that off camera, but most of the rear bumper is on. Now there are some other attachments to it, if you will, that fit inside the flexible bumper, so it's going to have to be, there's going to be more put on it. Okay, the next step is to put on the corner bumpers. They go like so, and the two that are on this side have a captive nut or some way of attaching here, so those are easier to start first because on the other side you're dealing with a bolt, 2 washers, and a nut. So it's best to get these in first. And then a bolt with a washer goes in, and then a washer on the other side, and then a nut. And I know that the bolt goes in from the outside because I put everything back together the way I needed, you know, the nuts and bolts in any place where I could. I put them in the way they needed to go back together so that, number one, I wouldn't lose them, and number two, I would know exactly how they went. Okay, and then the bottom one is a bolt with a washer on it, and then a washer and a nut. Bolt that. this is why, with having to deal with these things, why you put the other side in first. So you're not having to hold the corner piece. Okay. Now that you've got them all started, you can start tightening these. Oops. Better change your wrench. So hold it up in place. Here you need a wrench to hold on the back. And again, a wrench to hold on the back. So that side's on. Didn't remember whether I zoomed in on that side or not. Moved my paper towel. I had everything sitting on it and I dropped a couple things. One was a washer. I saw where that went. Okay, I see the nut. I'll just use these washers and nuts I have, the nut I have up here before I pick those up. Good idea to stage those. I don't know about the idea about putting them on a paper towel because it flung them around. That's the bottom one. In place. Okay, the next two pieces to go on are the pieces that hold the tail lights. There's 6 3/8 head bolts that hold each of those on. 3 on the top here. And 3 in the back. Biggest problem is seeing where the ones in the back go. There's one way in the corner here. If you have the 3 holding it in at the top, they kind of line up pretty well. Now on these, the places where the headlight or the taillights mount aren't actually in line. The one that goes on the outside is toward the further towards the front of the car. Starting with the one in the middle and the back. I'll show you on this one where the bolt holes are in the back, on the front. Once you get the first one lined up, pretty easy. There. So pretty much other than loosening up the whole bumper so that I can align it and then retightening it, this is going to be it for the rear crash bumper install. The next thing I think I will do is run the wiring that's got to go to the lights and the license plate light and all that. ripped out, and it's in the channel in there. You can't get a nut on the back end of it, at least not without a lot of work. You might be able to do it if it were this side, but that one's pretty far in. You'd have to have a long wrench that would hold it. So it's tight, it's not going anywhere. Like I said, the only thing left is adjusting it, and I'm not going to video that unless I find something really interesting or informative about it. So that's it for the rear bumper install. Next up, I'll be running some wiring to it.